Hey everyone, Chris Lopez here, and today we're going to discuss the market trends for March, plus some other interesting data. I don't have to tell everyone out there that we've had a very interesting month since the coronavirus, hit the U.S. and created all this chaos. So definitely ask questions as I go through this data, because my thought with this, and a lot more webinars I'll be doing here for the next probably couple of months, as we're on a shelter in place for limiting our time out in public, is rather than just doing a bunch of podcasts where I record those by myself or not live, might as well do a whole bunch of them live since, number one, I'm at home, already getting a little cabin fever, so it's nice to talk to people a little bit. And I think a lot of other people are at home as well, so that way we can ask questions. So definitely feel free to ask questions and keep your eye out for a lot more webinars that we'll be doing here the next, through the rest of April, May, I think. So getting into the stats here for March, actually, before I get into the stats here in March, I want to talk about why the Denver average home price may drop in the second quarter here. And I'm taking this data from an email that Lon Welsh, who's the founder of Your Castle, he sent out a few days ago. And it's really, really interesting data that he compiled here. So I'm just kind of going to reiterate it and give you the data, because he's talked about this in the past using some examples, but now it's very relevant with what's going on and the recession that we're heading into. So the way to look at this, a good example, and actually let me pull up my fancy thing to block out some of the PowerPoint right now. So to preface this, before we start going in these numbers here, a big impact as to why we might see the average price drop in Denver is going to be the jumbo loans. So jumbo loans are loans above the conforming conventional loan limit, which I think is around 575 in Denver. And basically, again, I'm not an expert, but what I've read from headlines and talking to lenders is that the way the lending world works is those loans that are less than 575-ish, those are backed by, Freddie and Fannie Mac and May and Ginnie Mac, and they can be sold to secondary markets, and they're, guaranteed by the government. Jumbo loans are not guaranteed by the government, and so right now, a lot of the investors, the people buying bonds and the mortgage-backed securities on Wall Street, they want to have government-backed loans. So right now, we're seeing a huge crunch on jumbo loans. And I don't think that's really going to affect any of our investing standpoint, because I've yet to meet any investors that have a rental property that has a jumbo loan on there. I'm sure there's some out there, but not any of my clients or people that I work with. Now, some investors may own houses for the personal residence that have a jumbo loan, but for the rental properties we're buying, that's just not a huge impact for investing. But we may see headlines saying that the prices are dropping here in Denver. So a good analogy to start off with, to take it one layer away from real estate, is to imagine that you own a car dealership. They basically sell two types of cars. They sell a basic entry-level car, and then they sell a luxury car. So let's say last year they sold 50 entry-level cars, and they sold for $20,000 a piece. So that means you had a total of $1 million in sales volume. So, $20,000 purchase price times 50 cars gives you $1 million in purchase price. So that's, one car they sell. The other car they sell is a luxury car. Now, the average price for luxury cars are $100,000. You sell 50 of those as well, and so you get a total sales volume of $5 million. So you put those two together, and you'd have a total sales volume of $6 million. Divide that by the average number of cars sold, which is 100, and then you have a $60,000 average purchase price. And so again, that's 50 cars at $20,000 and 50 cars at $100,000 gives you a $60,000 purchase price over those 100 cars sold. So very simple math, just kind of get the concept down. Now let's say next year, and this is going from, basically 2019 to 2020 to mirror, what's happening year over year. So that entry-level car has $20,000. Let's say those cars now cost $21,000 due to a 5% appreciation rate. But now the market isn't selling jumbo loans because there's no loans for people to buy luxury cars with, I should say. And so, therefore, everyone's going to buy entry-level cars. So you have a new price of $21,000 for entry-level cars. You sell 100 of those, and you have a $2.1 million sales volume. Now, for the luxury cars, even though those have appreciated, let's say 2% from $100,000 to $102,000, but if you sell 0 of them, well, you still sold the same number of cars. Both cars got more expensive, but since you're not able to sell the luxury cars for the non-existing luxury car lending market, aka the jumbo loans in real estate, what's that do to your average price? Well, since you only sold entry-level cars, your average price is $21,000. So it's the exact same because that's all you sold as entry-level. So even though from 2019 to 2020, prices went up, the average price went a lot lower. So the average price went from $20,000 to $21,000 for entry-level cars. But since you sold none of the higher-end stuff, that average sales price went from $60,000 to $21,000. So that's a huge increase, a huge decrease, and would also make for some good headlines. So that's the conceptual part of that. And let's flip over to real estate. So these are taken just some, rounded rough numbers from the Denver real estate market. So they're not exactly, but they're pretty close and just meant to be simple math to show you what may happen to prices. So in 2019, let's just say the entry level home, the kind of the average first time home buyer price, and this is also what a lot of investors are buying. The average price for, lower end condos, lower end townhomes, houses below $400,000 and so. That's the type of stuff that really two people buy, investors and a lot of the first-time home buyers. So the average price was around $350,000 for that price segment. And about 10,000 properties were sold last year. Now, if you look at the luxury, and that average price in 2019 was about $900,000. Well, if you have $900,000 in homes and you sold 5,000 of those, that gives you $4.5 million. Again, this is 2019 before we saw this craziness in the market. So the average price in 2019 was about $533,000 across those 15,000 homes sold. Now, in Denver, I think we average right around 50,000 single-family properties sold a year in Denver. So this is not the whole market. This is just kind of showing you the two extremes of the market, the lower price property and the more expensive luxury price homes to show you how this can affect the average price. So again, we sold $350,000 homes in 2019, about 10,000 of them. Luxury, $900,000, the average price, so about $5,000. So going to the next slide, or the next data slide here. Now let's compare the 2019 prices to the 2020 prices. So let's say we got that average, price for the first-time home buyer band. In 2019, they were $350,000. They appreciate 5%. And as we'll discuss in a few minutes, we're still seeing price appreciation, at least through March. So now that average price in 2020 is $367,500. So that's 5% more than that $350,000. And so probably we'll sell the same amount of homes in that price band this year. Now, obviously, we'll be selling less in, March and April and maybe May. But probably the same amount will still sell throughout the entire 12 months because there's a lot of pent-up demand on there. And first-time home buyers and investors want to buy those properties. So let's say also 3% more of those homes get sold. So we go from 10,000 to 10,300 in total homes sold for 2020 in this 350, 367 price band. So that gives you a sales volume of about $3.7 million. Now with the luxury homes, let's say they appreciate 2%. So they go up from $900,000 in 2019 to $918,000 in 2020. So that $18,000 is a 2%, price appreciation. Now in 2019, we sold 5,000 of them. I say we. Denver sold 5,000 of them approximately. But since we're having, the jumbo loan issues and From what I've read, those will probably get worked out, but it might be a month, it might be 3 months. It's just the bond market's crazy right now. So we can assume that we might sell less of those this year because people aren't buying the loans on the investors. Therefore, mortgage lenders can't give those home buyers loans to buy those properties. So let's say Denver sells less of those properties this year. So it goes from 5,000 to 4,000 homes sold. So that's a 20% reduction in sales volume. So even though those prices went up, but we sold about 1,000 less properties, that average sales volume is $3.67 million or so. So what that does then is it takes the average price of the 2020 homes down to $521. And we said on the previous slide that in 2019, the average price was $533. So this is where we have to stop and think about it for a second. It's a little bit confusing because even though both of those home prices increased, the first-time home buyer and the luxury homes, they increased. But since fewer of the luxury homes were sold, it actually really drags down the average price. So the point with all this is to take away that you probably will see some headlines, Denver Post and other papers and websites out there that the average home price in Denver is falling. And the average home price very well may be falling because if we don't sell a lot of the stuff in the upper end of the market, that's going to really have a drag and push down the average price. But does that mean that prices properties are not appreciating? Not necessarily. And this we actually have to dig in the data to see what these different price bands are doing as far as like first-time home buyers, trade-up buyers, luxury buyers. I forget all the exact names of them since we mostly work in the first-time home buyer entry-level stuff, but there's different price bands for homes. And that's where we have to look at, hey, what's the average on these homes? And then what's the sales volume compared from this year to last year? Because that's going to affect the average. Like I said, since I know no investors who are investing in luxury homes for rental properties, that probably shouldn't concern us. But when you do, or if you do see headlines or articles about the average home price dropping, dig in some more. Obviously, we'll be talking about this, every week and every month for the next while. So we'll keep you up to date on information here as well. But this is why you actually may see prices drop. So again, going back here in 2020, will be an average of maybe 521, which is less than that 533 average price in Denver. So we still sold, roughly the same amount of homes, a little bit less. But what happened was the volume dropped, and then we sold less than the higher end, which is going to push down the average sales price. All right, so if you guys have any questions on that, definitely ask me and let me know. And if there's any agents out there listening to this, YourCastle also published a really interesting article, just an internal for their agents, on what may happen with agents, gross commission income, and how the changing prices affect agents. So it's actually really interesting data. I won't go into it on this podcast because this is all geared towards investing. But if agents are listening to it, you want to see it, just email me. I'll be happy to forward the email to you. It's just interesting data talking about what agents do, what part of the market the agents shift, who loses, who grabs market share. So for me, for my business, I found it helpful, and it's found it very enlightening as well.